Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome students. Welcome Diploma of Business students to the final installment of Administration Systems. During this session, we're going to be taking you through those 5 assessment tasks to successfully complete this unit. By the end of the session today, we'll have taken you through the information that you need to be able to successfully submit and pass your 5 assessment tasks in this unit, which is known as Plan and Monitor Administration Systems. I believe that's the full title of this one.
Yep, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
sorry guys, just a short session. This is the very last session for this particular unit. Now, business students, just please note that the very last subject, in fact, the very last webinar for business students will be on Wednesday, which will be your business documents assessment workshop. We'll be taking you through the assessment tasks for business documents. Guys, this will effectively end our webinar series this week for business students. Other students it will continue for, of course, but business students it does end this week. So if there's any webinar that you are missing, please contact Alyssa or myself. They should be up on the site there for you. If there's something that you can't find, just let us know and we'll gladly give you a helping hand. So Alyssa, anything to add before we go through these 5 assessment tasks in administration systems, which are actually quite sort of straightforward assessments for the guys?
No,
Nothing too horrible.
no, I think
Close off the qualification.
yeah, no, nothing else. I guess just a reminder that last week, obviously, we did all 3 of those learning activities. So instead of doing 2 weeks worth of learning activities, they were all combined. So section 1, section 2, section 3 were all combined in last week's previous webinar. So if you're thinking that why is there only 2 webinars? We've only done 2 webinars. This will be the second one. So we compiled all of the learning activities for administration systems into last week's webinar. So, yeah.
And actually, we're looking at your screen right now, Alyssa. If I get you to scroll up, can I get you to scroll up while we're looking at your screen? And you'll see, if you scroll up, you'll see on the right-hand side is the webinar already sitting there from last week. So the one that we're talking about, all of the resource support, section 1, section 2, section 3, is sitting there on the right-hand side. You see where it says previous webinars, and there's a little YouTube clip there. That's it. It's already there waiting for you guys. So, as I said, all of the videos are up online, ready to rock and roll. If there's anything you're missing, let us know. We can send you the link to the file so that you can jump on it immediately while we're trying to fix or upload it to the site.
Yep. Cool. All right. How about we open that very first assessment task?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yay. Okay.
Okay.
It seems to be, here we go.
Yeah, would you like me to read? Would you like to read?
I can go ahead and read. Do you want to, I'm just thinking, can everybody see that? Is that's big enough there on the screen, is it?
You can blow it up. You can actually even get rid of all the little icons up the top. Do you know how to do that? You can clean up the actual view a little bit.
I thought I cleaned the screen already.
Where it says screen sharing, you can actually, where it says show my screen, you can actually just do all the full screen or just the actual window, the clean screen, I think it's called.
Yeah. So.
Pause C. Okay.
Oh, my computer is not okay.
Not responding. Well.
You can.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Yep. There we go.
Okay. There we go. Anyway, we're back. All is good. Okay. So cool. Yeah, I think we can see that pretty well. Let's have a look at the first question. So you're ready to read it out?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the very first question says, there are a number of key provisions of relevant legislation and regulations from all levels of government that may affect aspects of business operations, such as anti-discrimination legislation, ethical principles, codes of practice, privacy laws, financial legislation, health and safety legislation, consumer law, credit procedures, legislation and regulations. So the question is, why is it necessary to have a working knowledge of the legislation involved in business? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, guys, I know we've had a lot of questions in reference to bits of legislation. So what we're not asking for you, we're not asking for you to provide a detailed explanation of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Where we have just listed a couple of considerations there. What we're wanting you to provide is just really a bit of a holistic response. So we just want a general understanding, why it is important that you have, a good understanding of the relevant legislations. Why is it necessary to have working knowledge of them. We're not asking for a detailed explanation of each of those pieces of legislation. So for your answers, we want something in your own words. There's many ways that you can answer this question. Now, having a look at the question, I guess one of the ways you can answer it, it might be easier to answer it, is from the perspective of what might happen if you don't have a working knowledge of the legislation. That might be an easy way for students to answer this question. So because I guess the reasons why, there may be less reasons why as to what would happen if you don't have working knowledge of those legislations.
Yep.
So, for example, what would happen if I had no working knowledge of anti-discrimination legislation? What might possibly happen without the knowledge of, those legislations that fall under that bracket? What might happen if I have absolutely no idea or understanding of the privacy laws in this country? What might happen there? So, a good way to answer this question might sort of be in reverse: flip it over and just say to us or let us know, what might happen if you don't have the working knowledge or if you don't comply with that legislation. So, because if you don't have knowledge, then you're likely not to, that you're likely to be in breach of those legislations. So, what's likely to happen if you breach those laws as well?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How much to put in that? I think 1 or 2 paragraphs will cleanly answer that pretty well.
Yeah.
Yourself, Alyssa?
Yeah, I was about to say probably I'd be after a couple of paragraphs, just showing that you really do understand the importance behind knowing this type of legislation in terms of business. And I think, Adam, in every single unit that we've done previously, there's always been a section on elements of these particular pieces of legislation. So we have touched base, I think, quite considerably on really detailing why it is essential that you do have this type of knowledge. So I guess from that perspective, I definitely would be looking at least a couple of paragraphs. Yeah.
Yeah, absolute. A couple of paragraphs. I think, look, it's quality, not quantity, really. But give it. If you just sort of say that you'll be, up for litigation and in breach of the law, a little bit more, just a little bit more, dig in a little bit, kind of show us that you understand those components through your answer without actually giving us the definitions, if you like.
Yeah.
So, and I'll be happy with that.
Yeah. All right.
Question 2.
Yes.
Now the second question here, it's asking guys, what is an industry code of practice and what are the aims of such code? So there's 2 parts of this question. I've already done some good marking on this one with students. Generally what I've found so far with marking is that students do a really good job in explaining what a code of practice is, but they're not providing the aims of the code. So now they're often one and the same sort of a thing.
Yep.
So, the aims of the code is what it's trying to do or what it is. You can kind of say it in the same way, but just be really clear to us that we can see that you understand what the aims are.
Mm.
So another way to explain that is what's the purpose of it. So give us a definition of a code of practice, but then go in there and actually, give us the actual, reasons why it was effectively set up in the first place. So yeah, that's sort of what I'm looking for there. I guess we've probably gone through this sort of stuff already in last week's session. I cannot remember 100% if we've gone through codes of practices last week. Do you remember if we talked about these last week at all, Lisa?
I don't think we touched on codes of practice. Just off the top of my head, I don't think we did explore the notion, because we were really talking about the whole concept of administration systems, and we were looking at, I guess, the benefits, and we were looking at some examples of administration systems. So we didn't really touch on what actually a code of practice is itself.
I had a feeling, in which case I'm going to provide some students some information on this question in that case. And really, this is straight out of the Safe Work website, Safe Work Australia. Now, Safe Work Australia, they're our uniform body, I guess, if you like. They're trying to harmonise all of our work and health and safety laws around the country. So what the country is going through now is trying to, get all of the states, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, in accordance with each other with a lot of these work health and safety sort of legislations, just so that it's not an absolute minefield and there's a lot more ability to sort of cross-pollinate between states and things like that. Just so that students know, and this is straight off their side, codes of practices are practical guides to achieving the health and the standards of health, safety and welfare required under the WH&S Act here in Victoria or in Australia. So in most cases, these practical guides, so they're not the law themselves. So the legislation is the law, and codes of practice, they're the like how-to guides. So the law is the law is that you're not allowed to put your staff member in any sort of in an unruly sort of dangerous situation. That's a lot of those sorts of things fall in legislation, wordings like that. How do you do that though? These codes of practices are trying to give a practical sort of guide as to how you deal with these laws, so to speak. So in most situations, an approved code of practice guide, if you are compliant with that guide, then effectively it becomes admissible as in a court situation. Courts may regard the code of practice as what is, as the evidence as what is and what we understand as far as what should be appropriate sort of dealings and handlings of situation, or the way to act appropriately in a particular situation. So in a lot of situations, abiding by the code of practice will almost mean that you're almost guaranteed to be within legislation, but also in a court sort of situation can be used, as admissible in a court proceeding as evidence as to, the information that we had available to us in handling certain situations. And that was pretty horrible way of trying to explain it, but I don't know if you want to have a look at my screen now, Alyssa. Do you want to flip it over just really quickly? I've just pulled up a code of practice that the guys can quickly see. The very first one that comes up on the list is how to handle asbestos. So we know that we can't put our workers in dangerous situations. There's a code of practice. Are you seeing my screen now?
I can see your screen, yes. Yep.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm just going to do the quick fly through so you can sort of see code of practice. It's all very official. It's all very official. And pages and pages and pages and pages. And these become official sort of documents. So, they've got to cater for every little component of it. But, what to do with the handling and safe removal of asbestos. So obviously with asbestos, it's a very particular matter that has to be handled in a certain way. And so the need to have a practical guide. So we know we've got to keep our workers safe, but what that means in different industries may be quite different because, interestingly enough, there was something even with regards to asbestos, with things like airflow and where to stand and where not to stand, and there were some pictures. I'll see if I can find them as I'm just sort of flipping through. This is just a quick sort of overview, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and look, I mean,
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a few pictures here that just show, this is the correct way that you should be, the airflow should be going this way and that direction. This is exactly what we're sort of saying, that they're practical guides to sort of so that people can be sure that they're compliant with the actual law, with the actual legislation.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what we're asking for in your responses. Sorry, let's go for it.
Yeah, no. I was just going to say, in some of the assessments I've actually marked for this, I've actually suggested that the guys might even include an example of a code of practice as relevant to one of the pieces of legislation up above. Just, I guess, so that you can maybe see that practical application of just the question not just being a definition of what a code of practice is and the aims of such codes, but actually giving us a little bit of an example of what an actual code of practice might actually be with relevance to one of those. And obviously, Adam, you've highlighted one when it came to health and safety legislation. So very much I don't know, that was my suggestion with some of my students, just to pop something in there, for example, just an example of that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Now, are we looking at your screen now, Alyssa, or are we still on my screen? Might get you to take the reins again if we can.
Oh no, I think we're looking at.
I can't see anything. I can't see anything. It's just the whole thing's frozen up for me. The whole program. Apologies.
Can you see mine now?
Okay. Yep. We're good again.
Okay.
Sorry.
Cool.
Sorry, so we've had a day of technical issues. Uh, but this only highlights the need to be well prepared for these sorts of things. So it's apologies all around from us.
Okay. All right.
Question 3: what 4 steps need to be? And we're going to just churn through these because we don't have a lot left to go in this session. So, what 4 steps need to be observed in order to successfully implement a new or modified system? Now, we're referring to administration systems here. So, really, what we're asking, what are the 4 main steps? The 4 main areas, I guess. They're not really sort of small steps, but they're the 4 main kind of categories that you need to observe, that need to be observed in order to be successful when you're putting in a brand new administration system or you're modifying a current system. We want you to summarize these in your own words. Put simply, guys, page number 7, section number 2. Page 7, section 2, summarize in your own words what's there.
There you go.
Question 4, how can you divide design effective procedures?
Yeah. And I guess we've actually talked a lot about these in some of the other units under the Diploma of Business. And I think one of the units that kind of comes to mind is actually the staff recruitment one that we did, where we really talked about the importance of actually designing those effective procedures. And I mean, I would be probably looking for about 5 points around, how you design an effective procedure. In terms of like what are some of the important things that you need to remember if your procedure is actually going to be quite effective. So what are some of the steps that you might need to take in terms of that? That's my kind of angle on that particular question.
So you're only looking for 5 here. I was hoping you were going to double that actually, but
really?
That's all right.
10.
If five is the go, 5 is the go, because this could be anything. This is almost endless because we're sort of saying is, what are some good things that you can do when you're designing effective procedures. So to limit it to a couple is sort of a bit silly. But look, I think a minimum of 5 then I'm happy.
Okay.
Because
I'm happy.
It could be any 5.
I'm happy. I've been going with 5, but I'm happy to boost it up to 10 if you'd like to.
Actually, I actually marked somebody today that had 6 in there, so let's take 5 just so that there's no issues. No, 5 is. I think 5 will take it. 5 will do it.
Beautiful.
5 will do it. The point being that guys, put a few more in there if you like. It's a bit of a creative one. You can really you can draw from a few areas to answer that question.
Okay.
So we should have a look at number 2 in that case.
Yes. Just going back now to assessment number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
Now, number 2 is actually a bit of a creative exercise for guys. We're requiring them to write a letter. It's sort of like a letter writing. Well, not really a letter writing, but it's understanding. You're writing an open invitation to tender for the development of a brand new system. So what we're asking students to do is, okay, you need to put in a brand new system into your business. Now you can choose any of the following up the top. What you see up the top, you've got a personal management system.
Yep.
So whether you're looking for a system to help manage, annual leave and sick days from your staff internally, those sorts of things. Maybe you need a financial management system. So you're looking for something that manages outstanding payments and accounts receivable and payable. You might need a system that's looking at data collection, data analysis.
Yep.
Or your customer relationship management sort of systems, all those sorts of things.
And a lot
whatever it is, you guys get to pick.
Yeah, we did some examples as well last week, if you can remember. So we went through a series of different types of administrative systems out there. So hopefully the guys out there should have a bit of an idea as to just the different types of systems that I guess this top end of the question is referring to. So
yeah, and look, it might be a new telephone system as well, because that is it's a slightly different one from the versions up there. But if you're putting in a new telephony solution into your business, no matter what the size, it's the same sort of principles that apply here. You need to know what you need to be asking for when you're putting out an invitation to tender. And so this first question is actually getting you guys to basically put an open invitation to tender. Now we talked about the difference between open and closed. Regardless of if this is an open or closed, you're really going to have to go through the same sort of routine, I guess. Now, what we've done is we've given you the categories. We need you to include the following. So the way that you can do it is, and the way that I've asked students to do it is to copy all of those. Again, I hate using the word copy.
Yep.
Use those subheadings as your own subheadings is what I'm trying to say here. So details of your organization. That's your subheading. Underneath details of the organization, I want you to explain who you are. Because what we're doing is we're asking other organizations to provide us with a quote fulfilling a need that we have for a particular administration system which you guys are going to pick. So students, you get to pick what that system is, but we're putting a letter out there, we're inviting people to provide a quote. So first thing that we want to let people know is a little bit about who we are. So we are ABC Childcare Company, we've been around for 35 years, we're leaders in the childcare business, and just a little bit about you. That could also be partly, some of your values and what you stand for and so forth. It actually does help in trying to locate the right supplier. A description of the system required. Now this is two parts. There's the description of the system and then detailed information about the system requirement. Firstly, the description of the system. We don't expect you to know all the technical ins and outs because that's what we're inviting specialists to come in and help us with. We do need you to understand what it is you're asking for. So you need to be able to tell us what sort of system is. For that first line, a description of the system, tell us what type of administration system that you're needing. What I'm looking to see is a bit of information about what you're wanting the system to do in that description. So if you're asking for a financial management system, you need to be able to give one or two little details be able to describe what you're wanting it to do. So we require a financial management system that can help us managing all of the ingoings and outgoings. It needs to be able to run daily reports on outstanding account receivables. It needs to be able to track previous invoices up to 10 years, and that's fine. Just give us a bit of a broad, high-level view of what you're looking for. The next part where it says a detailed information about the system requirements, here is actually where it starts getting really techy. This is actually the most important part of a tender letter, because if you remember last week I was talking about functional requirements. This is your functional requirements. This is where you're telling a potential supplier of a system exactly what you're requiring them to provide you with that system. For this one, we don't expect you to have that detailed knowledge of any given administration system. We just need you to understand the process. So for this one, I'm wanting to see 2 or 3 bits of information, and I've asked students to do this already. Things like how many users are there, so how many people are going to be using the system, 1. Are you requiring it to be compatible with PC or Mac? 2, because tell us what sort of computers you have there in the office. So that's 1, that's 2, and 3, as a minimum, I'm wanting to know what sort of platform. Are you using Windows 7? Are you using Windows 3.1? I doubt anybody would be using Windows 3.1 these days. Windows 95, that's probably out of action as well. Just tell us which system you're needing them to be compliant with as a minimum. The next one, the timeline for the system implementation. So what I'm looking to see there, guys, is a breakdown of when, 1, you want their quote submitted, which is what it's asking you in the next question anyway. When the quote should be submitted, when the selection process of when we will be letting the successful applicant know if they've won the business. 2, when we need the system to be rolled out, when we're wanting training on that system, and when we might require some additional technical assistance from them. So we want to give them the timelines, because they may be working on 3 other projects at the moment, and they might, with that information, they may or may not be able to fill the order. That's why we're giving that information. Now, how their quotation should be submitted and formatted, what we're wanting you to do is just explain anything that you would like, or how to be submitted. So do they go online? Do they create an account through an online system? How do they provide us the quote? Do they use a template that we've created? They must use this particular template, or do they just need to cover certain areas on their quote? You need to tell us. We need to tell them how to submit it to us. So, and that's really for those 2, how it should be submitted and how it should be formatted. So how does it look? Is it a template? Is it online? And who's it getting sent to? Does it go internally? Does it come, you want us to post it? Do you want us to send it online? How do you want us to submit it? a request for details about post-purchase. So we need you to ask for information. Here we're saying, in your quote, you need to provide us information about post-purchase costs. We need to know how much it costs for technical support. How much technical support do we get, firstly, with your organisation? When are they available? How much does it cost for that ongoing support? And the second last one is when we're requiring their quote to be received and who to contact if they need more information. So please have all quotes finalised by Friday the whenever. More information, speak to Adam, Alyssa, or C on this number. That sort of a thing.
So how? Yeah. So what do you think I mean, it seems quite a detailed letter. So what are you looking for in terms of like lengthwise?
It's actually not detailed at all. When you actually break down each of those, I think there's 8, 10 little components.
Yep.
We're looking for like a couple of sentences under each. So, details of your organisation. Okay, we don't want 3 paragraphs. So my company's we're Adam Incorporated. We sell vintage guitars and boutique amplifiers from the 1960s. We've been in operation for 10 years, have 35 staff, and are really committed to customer service. Bang. That's a little bit about us.
All right, cool.
Description of the system required. Adam Incorporated are looking for a financial management system that we can do away with the manual filing. We need it to be able to cater for up to 500 clients. We need to be able to look back up to 10 years and manage both ingoings and outgoings. It's got to be compatible with PC, Mac, Windows 7, Linux, whatever it's compatible with, so on and so forth. So each little component, it's not actually asking for a lot. And if you use those subheadings, you'll find it's really easy to actually answer this one.
Cool. All right, cool.
But it's a good practice to get into, guys, because this is the sort of thing that you do when you are looking for systems. Because the other way we could have asked this question is, what sort of things should you include when you're putting a letter together? And we would have asked you to put these categories down, but rather than doing that, we're actually getting it to actually do that activity, which is a good one. Question 2, we want a flow chart, an action plan, a checklist. Would love to see it. I actually had a student submit a flow chart to me today. Brilliant. If you want to do a Gantt chart, extra bonus points there for Gantt charts. As a minimum, what we're looking for is probably about 6 to 10 items on an action plan for the implementation of administration system. Now, guys, I'm not going to give you much more about this one because actually the learning materials did give you a question very, very similar to this as well. Go into the materials, look in section 1 that talks about planning for an administration system. It gives you so many little things that you can do when you're preparing and planning and all the different steps and things that you need to take. So what we want is just a bit of a list, an action plan. Remember, an action plan includes a date and it includes a person's responsible. So with every action, you guys need to put a person and a date. And if you do, that's fine. And the last one is identify 2 problems that might be encountered when implementing the system and explain how these problems can be prevented. So give us 2 particular problems that you might have. Those problems might be that your staff are really unhappy about the change. Cool. So what are you going to do to hopefully prevent staff being unhappy about the change? And give us something that you might do. And that's an example. You already had a bit of practice on this in the learning activities as well. So we should really move on to the next one. Sorry, I've taken so long explaining this one. Oh, that was assessment 2. Apologies. They're not too bad.
That is assessment 2. Yeah, you're all good.
So we're all good.
You enjoy the tender process, Adam. That's all.
I love the tender process. I really do. No, I do. We explained to students last week a little bit about the tender process and functional requirements and, the difficulties in actually finding suitable candidates to fill a role because, it's sort of like they don't show you anything. They really want to come down and be face-to-face with you to win your business. They don't want to give you anything, and when they're providing their the thing is, this is on a very, when they're providing these quotes back to us, they're very cheeky about what they say they can and can't do as well, and very, very, very generic with their language because we ask them to fill an order, but they need to fill a requirement. You have to be able to fill this particular requirement. The next box is sort of says how you're going to do that. Now, they use sort of language is so open and generic, and you almost have to be an absolute expert to be able to understand these documents that they're providing us because it's like this. It's a game, and it's one of those things. Anyway, sorry, I digress.
All good. All right.
That,
So,
that's me trying to save time and get through this session.
all right,
Yeah.
let's have a look at assessment number three. So, assessment number three I've got on the screen, and quite simply, it's imagine you work in a cafe in which toast has always been made under a griller.
Yep.
Due to a number of staff burning themselves and customer complaints about toast being undercooked, a decision has
Yep.
been made that toast will now only be cooked using a toaster. And basically, what you have to do is you have to write a procedure that outlines how to make toast, and you must include why the change is being made, what to do, what not to do, how to do it, when it should be done, who should do it, what resources are available, and what the expected results are. So I guess, Adam, I would be looking for a procedure that definitely outlined and provided a response to each one of those 8 sections there,
Yeah.
quite simply.
Yep. 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 So guys, again, just use those as subheadings and go for it. Now, every one of my students that has done this one has sort of looked at this question and gone, they can't be asking for that, can they? The answer is yes. We are asking you to write up a procedure that shows us how to make toast. The point is that it's not about how to make toast. The point is about understanding, um, yeah,
The importance of
outlining what
the
you need to
procedure,
do
yeah,
to write a new procedure.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
why is the change being made? It's written in the question.
Yep.
Now, what to do and what not to do is not the procedure. These are tips. Tips for and for what to do and tips for what not to do. Look at those two as that. How to do it, under the how to do it, here's where I want you to write your 5 steps. Step 1, pull bread out of the bag. Okay, so whatever your new procedure is, this is for writing toast. Making toast.
Right.
So under the how, writing toast. Under the how to do it is where we want your actual procedure to be. So that's where you actually write your procedure. Underneath that, when it should be done will tell us when do you follow that procedure that you've just written. It should be pretty straightforward, that one. Who should do it? I had a student that actually said that the cafe manager should do it, and I said only the cafe manager is the one making toast. So who's going to be following this procedure? Well, who's going to be making toast is the question. What resources are available? What's available in the organisation to help these people with this new procedure? And what you expect this new procedure, this new toast making procedure that you're writing for us, what are you expecting it to do? And that's it. It's a very, very straightforward assessment, guys. Have a go. Have a go at that one. Assessment 4 actually rolls off from that one really nicely, which I really like. Now, assessment 4 has 2 questions, and they are the same question.
They are. All
I
right.
believe they're the same question. I think,
Yeah,
is
no,
this what we had?
I
This
agree
is?
with you. I had, yeah, it was my,
Oh, yeah, they're the same
yeah, they
question.
are the same question. So you'll see up here, question assessment task force says, what could the organisation do to encourage you to participate in the implementation process of using the new toaster, as previously discussed in assessment 3? And question 2 is, what could the organisation do to encourage you to participate in the implement? So they're both exactly the same.
Same question. Same
So you
question.
only
I've
need
had
to ask
students.
one.
Interestingly enough, I've had quite a few students that have answered this question, and their answer in question 1 wasn't sufficient, but what they put for their answer in 2 made it a sufficient response. So, if you're not sure that you put enough information, then sure, put two versions of the same question and put a bit more info in there, no problems. Guys, for this one, what I'm looking for is leadership techniques.
Yep.
So what I'm wanting to see is, okay, we've got a new procedure, which is to make toast. It's not about the toast, it's not about the procedure, but it is about trying to encourage and get everybody involved and excited about the idea that we've got this new toaster and so on and so forth. I've had some fantastic creative responses here. Actually, really been really pleased with some of the things that I've seen, because I want you to think outside the square.
Yep.
So here is about how are you going to make somebody excited about these new changes? What are you going to do to motivate somebody, to engage somebody, to include
Yep.
somebody?
Yep.
How might you do that? It's sort of hard for me to say what I want to say here, because otherwise I'm straight giving you guys the answers. But I am looking for leadership skill here. So what I'm looking for is skills relating to leadership. Alyssa?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. I mean, it is an interesting question, and I guess as we've talked about previously, when it comes to things like leadership,
Mm,
encouraging and getting people
yeah.
excited about something, and motivating them is a real key part of being, of that leadership element. So I guess the more creative you are, the more the more it showcases, I guess, some of your ideas and concepts around how you can really motivate people. And it's a nice little question there, and it does allow for your creativity, but also kind of brings into element a lot of the other ideas and concepts that have been discussed in previous units as well. So have a bit of
How
fun.
many things are you looking for here, Alyssa?
Oh, look, I think I
I
would
guess
do,
for me, it's yeah. Go.
yeah,
Sorry.
look, for this one, I guess I would maybe like to see probably about five.
Okay.
I like,
Well,
I,
that's a lot.
yeah. And
I'm
I
not.
think,
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna stipulate a number on this one. I'm just looking for a quality of response. So, you might give me one thing which just blows my mind, where I go, absolutely, that's exciting, that's engaging, that's really clever, or that's creative. Or you just might list five things you might say, or you might list three things. Go have a team meeting and send an email out, and I'll go, that's boring. You're on the right track here, but just get a bit creative on this one. I'll give you one. I'll give you one that a student gave me only because I just want to share it so badly. Um, the Do you like that?
yeah,
Uh, Students said to me that they will get their staff to pick which toaster that they're going to purchase.
oh, cool.
Let them choose.
Yep.
And I thought, I know it's really so simple. But you imagine that you run a bakery or whatever the business is, and we've got a situation we have to get a new toaster in because we had problems with customers and staff and stuff. You want these guys to do this new thing, and it's hard to get people to change their behavior and to do a new pattern. The idea of getting them to buy the machine is
Yeah,
clever because I think to me it means that they're gonna want to be excited to use it. It's their little machine. They are the ones that want to show everybody what a great purchase decision it was and how wonderful it is. And I just thought that was really just super duper duper clever. So looking for creative responses here, guys. There's no minimum. Just give me some great ways to engage and encourage people to be a part of and involved and excited about the changes.
cool. Okay.
Because this is about organizational change. So, how do you get people excited about organizational change? Again a beautiful lead on to the very next assessment in this one. So that's assessment task 4 and test assessment task 5
He's coming up now.
is just another set of questions. I think there's 3, 4, 5 questions here in 5. Again, they're just written questions. So for students that haven't completed this subject, this is one of the easier subjects as regarding the requirements from you as per the assessments. So for this question, we want you to consider and reflect on any organisational change. So we know that when we're putting in a new administration, when we're modifying, what we're doing when we've changed the system is we're effectively asking our staff to change their behaviour. Now, if anyone's had any luck in getting other people to change their behaviour, you'll know it doesn't happen easily. Human beings are a little bit adverse to change. Generally speaking, it's something that doesn't happen super duper easy. And so we talk about principles of change management from time to time through the course. And again, there's the strong link between leadership skill and understanding that people are a little bit adverse to change. And so we've got to make things a bit easier for them when we do. And remember we talked about at the start when we were talking about the stages of learning and that there's a degree of uncertainty that you go through when you're learning something new, and it's really the uncertainty that we're trying to break down for people. And really communication is key.
Hmm.
So just keep that in the back of your mind when we're answering these questions. The first question is that list any concerns that you've experienced when you've been involved in organisational change. So what we're wanting you to do here, guys, is just reflect and give us how did you feel when things changed? So what's an example of organisational change? Well, a new computer system was brought into the business. It could be anything. It could be a new corporate structure in the business. It could be that your job role changed.
Hmm.
Maybe the business moved to a new location. Maybe there was some key changes in the way that the organization were asking you to respond or behave, or to, however, to, to follow a certain policy or procedure, whatever it might be. We want you to list all of your concerns, or that you had there, reflect on this one. It's really important to understand that if we're putting a new administration system, or if we're requiring people in our organization to go through a behavioral change, that we have to understand that there's going to be a raft of concerns that we have to be ready for, or we have to at least be aware of, understanding that they exist. So that's the reason behind the question. Second question here is, how could your organization have better prepared and trained, supported you through that change? So look, for me, guys, communication is key. Communication is everything when it comes to change, organizational change, in my opinion. So what I'm looking for in an answer here is just some explanations on how an organization could well have better communicated some of those changes, or engaged you. I mean, there are other ways too. Communication is very wide, but just some maybe look, depending on what you put, what some of your concerns were with your very first question. I gave an example, I think was in this subject last week, that there was a gentleman that I used to know that was involved in lots of change management, and he was in an organisation that were changing their location, and they were switching floors with another floor. I can't remember the exact circumstances, but he had a list of like 200 frequently asked questions, and the one question he got from the audience was, will I have to change car parks? And he had no idea what the answer for that question was. And so the point is that we have to always consider what it's like for the other person that's going through that change, and what they could have done better. So his lesson there was, he actually went about speaking to people in the organisation when he was involving himself in these, to get a feeling for what they value, what's important to them in their role. Understanding what's important to somebody in their role will allow you to make that change a better change, or an easier change for them. So if the most important thing to me about my place of work is the car park I have downstairs, then it's important that if there's any organisational change, that people are aware that car parks might be an important commodity for our staff here, and we should be very strong and clear with our communication on car parks. Cool. Find out what security precautions your organisation takes and outline them. I'm looking at this question actually. This is actually a little bit different from the other first two questions, but I'm looking at this from a point of view of administration systems.
Cool.
So are there password protects? Yeah. Are there access levels? Those sorts of things. What sort of steps does your organisation take to protect? Because remember, guys, if we have customer details on our computer systems, we have a privacy law in this country. We need to protect that information from going out. So what sort of things does your organisation do to make sure that the private details of our customers and clients doesn't get shared with our competitors and the public, and therefore breach the law? Which leads us on to the second last one. We want you to give us some specific information about privacy law in your state. There's a couple of different little things that pop underneath privacy law. There's a big banner called privacy, and underneath that there are a few things like how to deal with health records and a few other little bits and bobs. We want you to list those little bits and bobs, stick in the ear, and just a quick summary of what those bits and bobs are. I think there's about 2 or 3 little bits and bobs per state will do it. And the last one is design a survey that can be used to identify training needs of employees in relation to administration systems. We've talked about training needs analysis before.
Yep.
So what we want you to do is give us a list of between 6 and 10 questions that you could ask your staff, so that you can successfully determine that their training needs, or this is a training needs analysis. We need you to ask some questions that could help you to successfully determine what training may or may not need to occur in relation to your brand new financial management system, or CRM, or whatever it is that you've just put in the business. And that is that.
Cool.
Alyssa, would you like to add anything to
No.
85?
No, nothing. Obviously, just when it does say the privacy laws, depending on what state or territory you are in, obviously that may just differ a little bit slightly. So just try and be really specific and make it relevant to your specific state or territory. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that's quite a nice one. I actually do really like those first three questions. Those first three questions are really quite thought provoking in terms of really kind of understanding any kind of change you have been involved in. If the guys aren't currently working or have not been in a situation where they've undergone organisational change, what might be, do you want them to list a hypothetical concerns that might arise if there is change in an organisation?
I think change in general is the underlying theme here, and it relates to change management. So if you've experienced any change, what did it feel like when you started a brand new job for the first time? What did it feel like when you had to go through and pack up your house and move house at that time? I mean, a significant change in your life. Talk about just, and you don't have to give me you don't have to provide the circumstance. You just have to provide the emotions and the feelings that you might have had through that. And it's really important to note that people go through this when there's change. And the purpose of this question is, so if you're putting a new system in, it's important to understand that your staff members may not be, might be dealing with a range of emotions as a result of that. So that's sort of what we're hoping for. Just a range of different feelings or emotions that you might have felt through those different periods of change, whenever it might have been confusion, anxiety, uncertainty, whatever it might be. Pop it in there, let's see it, and I think that, any sort of change will be able to take care of that one.
Beautiful. Okay, cool.
See, do you have any questions for us? How did that session go? Are you comfortable to go off and do this one? We've got one of our students in the room with us this afternoon. Sounds good.
It's actually not as scary as I think it seems. I think when you first kind of think about administration systems, I think you kind of there is a bit of an association of or a bit of a fear that might come along with it. But I think if you break down each of the assessment tasks, they're actually not too bad. And
Yep.
obviously, Adam, you've provided some great support and some great ideas behind what the students can really involve in their assessment tasks. So I don't think of it as being scary. I mean, I think there's definitely there's little bits and pieces of a lot of different units that we've done previously involved in here.
Yep.
I definitely feel quite confident that most of you guys will be able to get through it, especially you see. So yeah.
And just because I love Victorians more than anyone
And there it
else,
is. There it
uh,
is.
in Victoria we have a few laws like the Freedom of Information Act and the Health Records Act of 2001 that I would like to see there in question number 4 on this one.
It's down here. What's your privacy?
That's just for the Victorian students.
Okay,
The other students will have to research themselves.
that's exactly right. The other students will
No,
have
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
to.
I'm not. I'm actually. I'm not kidding. They are the answers for Victorian students, but they'll still need to provide a summary of what the Freedom of Information Act is and the Health Records Act of 2001. Just a quick summary, 1 or 2 sentences on what those acts, which are state acts under the federal or national privacy law legislation.
That's exactly, yep. Yep.
Okay, sounds good. All right, guys, have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for your time. We'll look forward to seeing business students on Wednesday for the final session, the very final webinar. I feel like we should have some sort of pizza and something, beverages possibly, I'm not sure. But in any case, I don't know how you do that online. I'm not sure that you do. Anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure working with all of you guys. I hope you've gotten something out of today's session. Thanks for those that are tuning in later to check it out. And please let Alyssa or myself know if there's anything that you're needing to access that you can't access. We'll look forward to seeing you in the next session.
Thank you.